Welcome to the Mr. Bill podcast. Based on some demand, I won't say popular demand. There was like, well, what the fuck was that?
Sorry, I moved my mic.
No worries. Yeah, so I don't know. There was like a bunch, probably like 10 people or so were like, you should do a podcast with Funny and talk about like how the show came about and whatnot. And so here we are, and we're going to have George field the questions, and then field, hit. George,
ask,
and Funny and I will field. All right, cool. Yeah, go for it.
Sick. All right. So first off, I think the best thing to start with is how did you guys meet, and how long have you been working together?
You tell your side of it, Funny.
So we actually met in person a long time after we started working together, right? Someone sent me one of your EP a long time ago. I think it was 2012, something like that. And I just wrote you in a broken English saying, hey, love your music. Can I do art for you? And that was it. We started the first Electrocado album, then the second, then some singles, then some EPs, then some compilation, and then we just kept going for 15 years, I guess.
Yeah, we started working together so long ago that when we first started working together, our primary form of communication was still Skype. But I think
true.
I can't remember exactly which platform you messaged me on. It might have been SoundCloud, or it might have been
possibly
something else.
SoundCloud, yeah.
But yeah, basically, yeah, Funny just hit me up and was like, "Hey, liked your last EP, but the artwork was trash. I can do better." And I was like, "All right, feel free." Yeah. And then yeah, I just found working with Funny to be really enjoyable, and so yeah, we've worked together for like over a decade now. Yeah, 15 years, maybe even like 17 years, a long time.
Mm-hmm. I think we met in London for the first time.
Yeah, I think in 2017.
Wow.
Something like that, for sure.
And I think it's only like, what, three releases of yours, like self-released music that Funi hasn't done the art for.
Yeah, really old releases. And it's just because I felt bad asking Funny to do so much work. I'd be like, hey, you want to do another artwork? And it was like, 3 months since I had released something, and I just felt bad asking him to do so much shit. And so like I would just ask other people just as to not bother Funny.
But now we've been pretty consistent.
Yeah, we've been consistent for about at least over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So something that I just want to add in here before we get into specifically this performance. The first time that you guys did an AV set, at least together, was Lost Lands in 2023, which is also when I met Funi. And that kind of sparked Bill doing a lot more AV sets and generally kind of leaning more into doing AV sets for every performance. Was that, except for Inflatable, because I know that was like a bit of an AV set type situation. But the reason I wanted to mention that is because that was kind of the precursor to what you guys have been working on more recently. So it's gone from kind of like loopable clips to a longer narrative thing. But between that, how did this booking come about for Red Rocks?
Well, I've just known Tipper for a long time, and he just messaged me one day and was like, hey, I've got you penciled in for direct support for me at my last show ever, basically. And I was like, oh, okay, it's kind of a crazy fucking bomb to drop on me right now. And then I was like, shit, I'm gonna have to do a lot of work for that. And so, yeah, obviously I hit up Funny and was like, yo, this show's probably going to be the biggest thing I've ever done. Like, do you want to be involved and make something really special for it? And Funny was like, maybe, seems like a lot of work. But then, yeah, I ended up convincing him. But yeah, like you said, the original iteration of the AV set was this inflatable Mr. Bill that I had. I had this idea to like get this dude in Melbourne to make this inflatable version of the Bill, which I think I still have in my garage. And then you just blow it up with a fan and then projection map onto it. And then I very quickly learned that projection mapping onto an object that's round fucking sucks. Like the better way to do it actually is just to have a cardboard flat cutout of the Mr. Bill shape, and then you can make it look rounded with the content itself. Like you can round off all of the edges and use shadows and all sorts of shit to just make it look like it's an inflatable if you want, and that just looks way cleaner. So that was a bit of a blunder on my part. But you know, it's a learning experience. You figure out what's what as you go. And then the years after that, so this was in like 2013 or something, it was a long time ago. Years after that, we got the Lost Lands booking in 2023. And I was like, this is also going to be a big show, Funny, do you want to come over and do visuals for that? And he was like, sure, but I have to make a bunch of content. And also at the time I was doing the inflatable stuff, Funny was not animating, he was just drawing in Photoshop, and then years later got into Quill VR, and so for the Lost Land show he was able to kind of like make a bunch of clips in Quill VR. And maybe you can explain how you make the content, Funny, in Quill.
Yeah, so that's really what changed and allowed us to do an AV show. Basically, I got into VR, I got into Quill, which is a software to paint and animate directly in VR. And as soon as I saw that software, I immediately bought a headset and I started, playing, working with it. And eventually that led to the creation of an animation studio that I run called Studio Syro, which actually was our first gig ever when we founded the studio, was to produce some visuals for your show. And everyone from the studio was part of it at the time. It was, like I said, our first collaborative work. And then we worked on Tales from Sad Island. We worked on some other VR experiences. So in those 4 or 5 years, I learned to animate a little bit, become more confident, not just painting in VR, but also just animating and like building entire narrative experiences. I've done one last year with Drulu, The Art of Change, which was also entirely made in VR. And I had it was an extension of an album which was very narrative driven, and that gave me the confidence to do something more narrative based for this project as well. Just because Quill allows you to basically create from scratch an entire piece that you can distribute in various formats, from painting to animating to editing to movie making, virtual camera, rendering out, sequencing everything. It's a long process, but it's much faster than traditional video making software like After Effects or any other, commonly used tool. Quill is still like a very niche software, but it's incredible. I've been using it, for over 7 years now. And before, we just built a traditional AV show where I just provided you with a tons of clips that you can put in whatever order you want, just to fit the music that changes way more often according to how many show you're doing. And I know you plays a lot of tunes, so the idea was to have like just a bombardment of clips of whatever and just super micro edited. But for this, the Tipper and Friends show, it was a very different approach. I guess we're gonna expand on it in a bit. But yeah. Quill was like the change, what changed our approach in making shows, basically. Mm-hmm. Which is crazy because it's a tool for making VR content, but we are using it for music gigs.
Yeah, I mean, from my understanding, the way you work in Quill is you have your VR headset on, you have your controllers, and you're just drawing in free space, and you can kind of just draw a big environment, and then you can just like animate parts of that environment using keyframes, and then you basically just like kind of look around the environment.
Correct.
Whilst you're in VR, whilst recording it, right?
Yeah, you're in the scene that you're painting around yourself, and you can animate basically using a combination of frame by frame traditional animation is like basically stop motion. You have virtual puppets and you move them and you make a frame, you move it, you make a frame. And that's like the main principle. But you have another incredible tool that's called the Anim Brush that basically is like a looping station, like you're painting and it's recording your movement. So you can do a lot of effects and a lot of particles, an infinite amount of things you can do with that tool. And it's another reason why it's faster than traditional media, because you're just, I don't know, with simple character, you can just grab them, puppeteer, like move them around, recording your movement, and you're basically like acting with the characters in your hand, and then you're recording that, and then you play it back, and you improve it, and it in 2 seconds you can animate a sequence, and then you can add frame by frame animation on top of the transformation, and you can, you have a vast, infinite options of possibility that you can do very quickly. That's the fun part.
Yeah, so as Funny said, the original thing that we had done with Lost Lands was he just made like thousands of these kind of 5-second little sequences and then just like loaded them all into a Resolume session and then was kind of just triggering them. And then after that, I was like, all right, we now have like, 1,000, or maybe it wasn't 1,000 at that time. It might have been like 200 5-second clips or whatever. And I was like, I could probably set up a situation where Ableton talks to Resolume by sending MIDI from Ableton to Resolume and OSC from Ableton to Resolume using Max for Live to basically create a sequencer out of Resolume. So then what I would do with those clips, which is, if you've seen me play in the last maybe 2 years or something, you would have seen some iteration of this type of show, is I have kind of 2 setups. One setup is the sequencing side of things, where I have Ableton and Resolume set up side by side, and then I have a big amount of pre-mapped MIDI and OSC going from Ableton to Resolume, and then I decide, okay, I'm going to put this track into Ableton, and then I'm going to load these clips into Resolume, and then I'm going to trigger this clip on beat 1, this one on beat 1.2, then I'm going to do a strobe on the snare, and then I'm going to do this, and I'll just sequence that whole thing out. And then once I'm happy with that sequence, which usually takes like a day or 2 of fucking around, I will literally just use Spout to come out of Resolume and record it directly into OBS. And then that final file that I record into OBS is the video that gets played with that track at the show. And the way I trigger that track is the exact same as the sequencing thing. I'm just sending MIDI from Ableton to Resolume to trigger that track at the correct time. And that's also exactly how we did the Tipper show, except each thing that I was triggering was not a sequence that I made using Ableton and Resolume. It was a sequence that Funny had animated completely in Quill VR.
Which is fundamental for having everything synced perfectly and not relying upon me pressing a clip at the right moment, because just for the quality of this set, it wouldn't fit. It just had to be done in a way that we couldn't mess up the timing.
Mm-hmm. I know we discussed time, like looking into time code and a few other, options for this.
So most VJs consider what we're doing time code, but there's no time code involved at all. So time code is like a really specific protocol that's essentially some form of white noise. Like if you listen to it, it doesn't quite sound like white noise. It sounds like data. It's just a bunch of spectral gobbledygook shit. And pretty much what that's doing is looking at a window size of samples. So like I have to explain what an audio file is, I guess. So an audio file is something that is measured in a sample rate and a bit depth. And for LTC or timecode, you're only interested in the bit depth, the sample rate. And so every 1 second of audio, you have 44,100 samples. And then you have this timecode thing, which is looking at a window of those samples. So it's probably looking at a window size of like 256 samples. So every 256 sample size block, it's looking at it. And every block is going to be completely unique because it's basically white noise, which is completely random. So it's going to generate a completely random number at every position. And then you tell your video, when you see this number, you must play this part of the video. And that's not how we do it at all. We do it with MIDI directly. So I just have Ableton and Resolume, and Ableton is just sending a MIDI note over to Resolume to trigger that clip slot at the right time. So even some of the VJs at the Tipper show were like, oh, nice time code. And I was like, we're not using time code at all. I feel like a lot of people just see anything that's synced and consider it time code, but it's actually, time code is a very specific thing.
And also, we did prepare for me to have like live effects on top. So the way we prepared initially was that you were gonna send the clip to me, and I was gonna do a bunch of things on top through another computer, and then send it back to the LED wall. But then after 3 days of trying the setup and me feeling pretty confident about which effects to use at what point without interfering too much with the story and how everything was already affected before and edited before, we realized that there was too much of a latency issue, so we decided to not do that and just bypass it. Because at the end of the day, the set was already prepared and it was fine as it was. We just did the work in advance rather than live. I guess that's not really VJing, but it was still visual images on a LED wall, so I think it still apply. Kind of VJing.
Yeah, the setup that we had at Red Rocks was my computer on stage was generating all of the video and the audio. I just had everything loaded in there, and then through a fiber line, I was sending my video to front of house where Funny was. And then initially we had planned to take that fiber line and go into a capture card where he could have another computer where he was doing effects and stuff, and then send it to the LED wall. But adding in that extra computer added in like, I don't know, half a second of latency or something like that, which kind of threw everything off. Like things weren't hitting on the beats that they were supposed to and stuff, so we ended up foregoing that. But yeah, I mean, it worked out well. I'm happy with how it went and happy with how it looked.
We still had like backup in case anything went wrong on your end. We still had like all the clips lined up, and I was ready to do something, but luckily everything was pretty damn smoothly.
Yeah. I just want to throw a shout out to Ethan Knox Lumina for being there and being the techie guy that he is.
Yeah, he helped with the tech stuff a lot.
Oh yeah, very good at it.
And also Matt, what's his name? Matt Fudge? No, not Matt Fudge. Matt, I can't remember. Matthew Knotts, I think was his name. The guy who was like their V1 there. He also helped a lot. Big ups.
Yeah. All the doubts and the concern that I had, it just made them like go away in 20 seconds. I was like, oh, we need to rescale the video because it's not exactly 4K. We're gonna have to crop all that, and it just like immediately fixed it. Like it just scaled it, shrinked it a little bit, and it was perfect.
So what does the live performance itself look like in terms of triggering the clips and effects? And like, some people wanted to know like what your involvement was, like how hands-on were you in actually performing versus predetermined content?
The whole thing was predetermined. There's no fucking way that you can perform something to that level of perfection and have that level of like storytelling and sequencing on the fly. It just does not work that way. This idea I think that people have that electronic music is live pretty much at all is kind of wild to me. I really think that whenever you see an electronic music set like that, it's so like inhumanly perfect that there's just no way to do that live. I mean, for me, on my end, it's like I'm producing all of the tunes, like spending hours on like tiny little 1 second chunks and fills and shit, and to go live and to just try and replay those is just a wild idea to me. I mean, in one sense, you gain some kind of performance aspect to it. Like if you're pushing buttons and what you're pushing is obviously like creating some sort of response, and people can see that, they're like, oh, he's like doing the thing, and like surely that has some value to it. But it comes at the cost of everything being more loose and less perfect. And
yeah,
I never practice pushing buttons in time to stuff. It's not really my thing. My thing is I sit in the studio and I make music all day. And so I'm not really trying to flex the fact that I can push some buttons in time. I'm trying to flex the fact that like here's a bunch of shit that I made that I spent a long time on, and I want it to be perfect for both my and your sake, so that you can experience this thing that I spent months doing or whatever. And I'm sure
pushing a lot of buttons.
Yeah. So I pushed buttons in that set 20 times. Basically, I pushed one button per song, and then the song would play out. I would do a little bit of effects on the mixer, but like nothing major, because again, I didn't want to like, just filter shit for the sake of filtering it, or like just put reverb on shit for the sake of putting reverb on shit. Like I was kind of trying to, we front loaded all the stress. We put like, 2 or 3 months of work into this thing. I didn't want to at the last second decide, I'm going to put reverb on everything and, bit crush things and just destroy it. Like that makes no sense to me. There is a way that you can set up a system in which you can play live electronic music. There's people who do this like Iodo, but that's the way that they write their music in the first place. They don't write music and then try to refactor it for something that can be played live. They set up the environment first in which they can play the music live, and then that is how they make their music in real time. And same with the VJs, like the other VJs for the other set. They don't spend as much time probably. Well, I'm not sure. I assume they don't sit there for months writing an entire 1 hour sequence out and then destroy a live. I think what they're doing is they're making little bits of content, like 5-10 second clips, and they're setting up kind of like a system in which they can jam on kind of, and then they're practicing jamming a bunch, and then that's kind of what they do live.
Yeah, and they didn't know the set in advance while we literally built it together, like tune after tune. Like the music and the visual were put together piece by piece.
So speaking of how you guys created it, the actual like process that you took, what did that process look like? Was it back and forth? Was it Bill did the music and sent it to Funi? Did Funi create visuals and then Bill created music? And how did some of the initial conversations with Tipper affect the direction of the music and the visuals?
You can answer that, Funny, and then I'll jump in.
Mm-hmm. So it went like this. We knew we had an hour to fill, and that was like a reasonable time to do quite a lot. And it was mainly figuring out how to start it in terms of which is the right track to open with. I think we did 4 variation of 3 different intro, and then we agreed that the one that ultimately we used was the right one. And from my end, I knew that this was a special occasion. It wasn't just like any other gig. It carried like a lot of sentimental value from all the people, all the years. It's Tipper. Like I grew up with this music, and I know everybody else did. And most of these people will be present that day, and they will all be in a special mindset from the get-go. So I wanted to really like play with that idea, knowing that people are gonna be super emotional already because it's the last Tipper show, and that made me wanna just tell a story instead of having just visuals that are as a like backup to the music, not a backup, like just support of the music. And also the way the Red Rocks was set up really put the visual on the center stage with this gigantic wall, which is you could barely see Tipper or the other support act playing. They were basically in the dark, and you would just see massive visuals. So yeah, the idea was to make something that made you feel a lot of things. And I wanted to be like fun and lighthearted in a way, but also to carry some emotional depth, which I guess we can go into detail. But it kind of went on its own as we were building the set. Like the music was just so good, and there were clear sections that gave me like just random ideas on what to show at what point. And I felt like there was like a very slow and like developing intro, then there were some like action moments with the music, it's like faster, and then you had some silly moment when the music it's like stupidly good and very like, I don't know, it sounded almost like satirical to me. And then we have this like final like journey which is very melancholic, but then it had like some hopeful notes. I don't know, I just went along with the tracks, and it's crazy how like the timing of the story arc of the Melanzana guy kind of worked just naturally with the way the music was progressing, and how we like waited to show a certain scene and how they come up at a certain point, and how they were actually impactful, because we spent like 45 minutes following this Melanzana guy and then seeing him like go to the great beyond, carried by the Tipper character. Like I knew that it was like silly, but in that contest people were gonna just perceive it like very very deeply. And I'm glad to you know, read some of the people say like their comments about it, and like feel like it worked.
Yeah, I would say the process was, Tipper hit us up and was like, hey, I want you to be direct support, and he was like, you have to nail it. And so so he hit me up like, I don't know, a few months before I even started building the set, and during which time I was making just a bunch of whips and random beats, and I would just send them to him and be like, is this the vibe? Is that the vibe? Is this the vibe? And he would be like, oh, that one's a bit too heavy. Yes, this one's good. I think that'll work well. I don't think that'll work well. And so like over that first couple of months, I kind of like got a feeling for what it was of that he wanted from me, and it basically was like the shit I used to do before I started making dubstep. It was like the bill from 15 years ago is what he wanted. And so I had a ton of whips from back in the day that I had just never finished, from like 2014, 2012 even. Like some of them are really old, and so and they were never finished or never released, so I just started pulling those out and just working on them. So that way it kind of had that actual bill from 15 years ago in the music, but with the production skills that I have today. And yeah, as Funny said, we tried a few different intros, and that honestly was like the hardest part to figure out, is like, what do we start with? And then once we figured out like what to start with, it was easy to just figure out what goes next, because you just find stuff that's in a similar vibe, similar key, similar tempo. So I would just dig through all of my old whips that I never finished, and go like, all right, that seems like vibe-wise it works, but it sounds like shit because I produced it like 20 years ago. And so then I would clean it up and fix it and turn it into something brand new. And then I just kept doing that for each track. And so each track took like, I don't know, 5 to 7 days to kind of work into the thing. So there was 20 tracks in the set. So do the math, it was like a couple of months of work. But honestly, it was a lot faster than I thought it would be. Me and Funny were like, oh man, it's going to take like, we had 3 months, I think, to work with, and we're like, it's going to take the entire 3 months, no doubt. And we ended up doing it in like 7 weeks or 8 weeks or something. So we had like a month or something to spare to just optimize it, which was really cool. So yeah, the process was basically, after the intro shit was figured out, just find the track that goes next that makes sense, like in terms of its vibe and its BPM and its tempo, and then clean that track up, and then render that part of the set from the start and give it to Funny, and then he would animate to that, and then he'd be like, all right, I'm done, and show me what he'd done, and then I'd be like, all right, I got to give you more sets. So I'd like make a few more tracks and then render that bigger chunk and give it to Funny, and we just kept doing that for like a couple of months.
And I already had some of the visual already. I had made it before. I just rearranged them and resequenced them in like various chunks, but most of it was done just for this. But despite that, yeah, it went faster than expected. But it did require an insane amount of effort. Especially like the last part when I had to render 87,000 frames in Quill, and I don't even have that strong of a computer. I had to like split the file in different chunks because I literally broke Quill. Like Quill couldn't handle an entire hour of animation on its timeline, despite being an hour long. There were just too many layers, too many channels, too many keyframe, too many animation. So I had to split the master file in 3 or 4 different big chunks, and then I rendered those out as individual frames in 4K, and then I imported all those frames into Premiere, and then I had to render that out, and it took like a long time. And then there was a lot of issue with the rendering. I noticed mistakes, so I had to go back and fix it, and then re-render, and then you had to re-render one final time, converting from MP4 to DVX, because that's what Resolume wants. Otherwise, it's not optimized for it. So it's like very mechanical and boring process at the end, but it had to be done. And I am really tempted to go back and make it I don't know if it's possible, but it would be amazing if people could see it in VR. But it's just too big of a project, and it would have to also be split into different files. You can't possibly also... Nobody really wants to be in VR for an hour, being bombarded by strobes. But I think it'd be cool to do it. I already had like a smaller VR experience, I would say, from your previous, like from older visual and the Too Complicated remix, which are basically like a collection of visual that you have in your AV show that people can watch in VR. But this one is just too long, so we'll figure it out. Maybe if we put everything into Unity, it just seems like an extra enormous amount of work.
Oh, your cat's
Sorry.
cat's going crazy over there.
Yeah, there's something going on outside.
Uh-oh.
Hey!
Damn, she sees something. Oh, he sees something.
Can I go check for a second?
Yeah, go
absolutely.
for it. All right, we're back from the cat break.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, the other cool thing about Quill VR is that you can just render at any pixel rate. So if we wanted to take that show to the Las Vegas Sphere, it would be possible, which is kind of cool. And I also, there's another point that I wanted to make about people asking if this was live or not, which is that like the fact that they can't tell if it was or not, I feel like makes it very unimportant. Like, does it change it if you look at it and you're like, oh man, I can't tell if this is live or not, but then you find out it isn't, and then you're like, oh well, that sucks then, I guess. And like, does it make a difference really? Like, whenever I see an electronic artist, I'm like, I can't even tell what they're doing. It's a bunch of small buttons on a big stage, and I can't tell which ones they're hitting when or what they're doing. And at the end of it, as long as the set was really cool, I don't care how many buttons they push forward about.
It's not like we're pretending to be live. It's not like lip syncing, you know. And I guess that would be disappointing if you go see someone thinking they're live, but they're just pretending to play. But that's not what it is. And also, yeah, it's like electronic music by like in its intrinsic nature, it's made to be repeated and repeatable. So I don't see why it would make sense to just turn it into a live thing.
Right.
Yeah, I don't.
What's the next question? Oh, sorry, go on.
The next question is the show really called Sequence of Eggplants?
Yes.
Okay.
So the Mr. Bill character is like, I've always referred to him as Potato Bill, but he's really more of an eggplant. And so, yeah, it's basically like the life of an eggplant is essentially what the show is like he's born from this tree, and then he ends up in some room, and the whole show is kind of based around him in his room, and you know, stuff comes into the room and all this kind of shit happens to him. It's basically about an eggplant getting harassed, and then at the end he goes through a portal and dies. So yeah, it's like the life
Pretty
of an
much.
eggplant is basically what it is.
Yeah, he's being various vegetables and fruit throughout his career. It's been a potato, it's been an avocado, now it's an eggplant.
Yeah, but I think we've kind of decided, like at least loosely, that the character is going to be an eggplant now, because
For the
It's kinda
foreseeable
always-
future.
He's kind of
Until
always
this
been an
next
eggplant.
transformation. Yeah.
and there's a relevant question about the eggplant getting harassed, which was let's see, let me find it. Did he ever consider closing his bedroom window so there wouldn't be so many shenanigans coming in all the time?
There was a
Yeah.
window, but then the room fell apart at some point and the window was broken and he didn't have money to fix it.
Yeah. That I think it was in track 3 or 4 or something. The whole fucking room just like dismantles itself anyway. So I mean, closing the window, I don't think would have helped him there.
Yeah. And also, it's not just like real external things that are bothering him. Like some of the things that happens, they come from himself, like from within. We just see it. Everything is a allegory of something and a metaphor of something else, including the window that can be closed.
What are each of your favorite scenes of the performance?
My one is the one that happens toward the end where there's like the bear in the pink room and the room is kind of like pulling itself apart, and then Mr. Melanzani gets in the box and all that stuff. That's my favorite part. I just really like the look of that scene. It's really pretty.
And for me, probably the knock, like having the knock that we had in screening part 2, just being recontextualized, has that is coming to pick you up and take you to the afterlife, and then just seeing it on stage and seeing people reaction. That's definitely my favorite part. But everything was great, and everything was so fun to animate to and to work on. Like
Yeah, it was interesting to see the reactions there. I already knew like the Jettison Mine Hatch bit would get a big reaction, and the the bit with Mr. Melanzani and you on the stage, the acorn like in the Red Rock scene.
right.
I knew that was going to get a big crowd reaction, but yeah, it was kind of interesting to see like where some of the crowd reactions were. Like those two were obviously going to be big reactions, and I can't remember where the other ones were. I'd have to watch it back.
The ChatGPT one.
That one.
Oh yeah,
Got a big reaction.
The little bear saying time is running out. I feel like every time I wrote something, people just like that.
So
the 3 or 4 sentences that we have.
there's definitely a few of these that people wanted to ask questions about, and I think we should start with the ChatGPT one, because some people online did not appreciate some of the use from the visual artists through the weekend of AI, and some people took that as kind of some shade towards the other visual artists. And I mean, I know that it wasn't, because I know when you guys made that. But do you want to talk a little bit about that scene?
Yeah, it wasn't a shade because it was done before knowing anything about the event. So I just thought it would be funny.
It was.
I was
very
thinking,
funny.
why not do that? Like pretend that it's actually happening, and then like even writing the text by hand instead of being like well written like a keyboard would, like immediately show you that it's not real. I just thought it would be funny, and it just happened to then be perceived as that because there actually were a lot of AI visual, and some of them were great, and some of them was bad. That's whatever. It wasn't a diss though.
And also, it was based on a real image that ChatGPT gave us. Because when we were making the set, Funny actually went to ChatGPT and was like, "Hey, make visuals for the Mr. Bill show," and it literally spat out something that looked a lot like that thing he made in Quill, which is basically just a potato with arms and legs, and it looks like trash. And I think the reason that ChatGPT said it couldn't make Potato Bill or Mr. Melanzane correctly is because it was like, oh, I can't make you that directly because that would be like breaching copyright or whatever. And so Funny was just like, well, just make me like, you know, something that can be used as an album cover or something. And it just produced this disgusting fucking potato with arms and legs. And
Yeah, I did say it was a potato. Like that, we've been calling it Potato Bill, so that's why it made a potato with the creepy big eyes, big anime eyes. And then I just remade it in Quill, and then I badly animated it on purpose so that it doesn't even loop. It's just like all jaggedy to simulate how how badly animation it's AI done at the moment.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, next question.
Cool. Well, I mean, I was just going to say there's a lot of symbolism and like references in the entire set. Someone asks about, you know, the drum machine monkey being an Aphex Twin reference. And I mean, I know like there's tons of little hidden things. A lot of people were bringing up like Outer Wilds. I mean, I think we could probably talk for like hours on the amount of like references and symbols there were in that set. But what were some of like the, I know obviously like you guys both have a lot of influences from like, you know, other music you've listened to, games, films, etc. But how has that kind of shaped the artwork and the symbolism that ended up in the final set?
I just like when other people do it, so I also do it. And yeah, it could be seen as just like throwing out references for the sake of it, which it kind of is, but that's kind of also the point that, yeah, they're just things that we like or things that people will recognize and be like, oh, I recognize that thing. That's all it is. And some has a deeper meaning, and some are just like throwing there sarcastically. You know, there's like the scene with the Monkey Drummer by Chris Cunningham. That's just because I grew up being a fan of Chris Cunningham. And that whole section, like with the arcade machine and then Zelda, is just like the shelf of the things from our childhood. And that's it. That's what it is. And then you have like a ton of like stupid memes, some like occultist stuff. It's just to get people talking, just to get that idea that, you know, there is something else behind the symbol. It's just like, I don't know, it just makes me think of why that thing was there at that point, and it just makes it more interesting. That's how I feel. So I also do that.
Yeah, the only reference I think on my side, on the audio side, was a reference to Unison by Porter Robinson, where I, at the end of screening part 2,
Right.
which I reworked specifically for this set, all of the songs were reworked specifically for this set, I just threw the Unison melody in there because I thought it sounded cool. And then I saw a bunch of comments online of people being like, yo, what a cool Porter Robinson remix. It was like, bro, like the 4 minutes of the song was like an original song, and then 20 seconds at the end had the Porter melody just hidden in there as like a little Easter egg, and now all of a sudden it's a Porter remix.
So there were a lot of questions about the Jettison Mind Hatch sequence there. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Like, do you want to talk about the depth of the meaning, or do you want to leave that for people's interpretation?
I mean, it was like 80% of the set done, and it was screening, and it was after the knock, and I was thinking, you know, I want the knock to acquire a new meaning than the one that anyone can feel by just listening to the tune and be scared by the panning, which was already kind of a meme in within Bill's community. And I don't know, I figured what would be the more impactful thing to do at this point when the set is about to finish and there's a big moment. And it just, like, the only option that came to my head was reference Tipper and have Tipper being, well, it's not Tipper itself, it's like Tipper's music, like just be the one that carries another musician to the afterlife, and just showing how it is a cycle and how inspiration and music just go from one person to the other, and it just branches out and it assumes forms and directions and shapes that you can't foresee. And that's what it was. And the idea of having him talk, I also thought it was funny because you're not gonna expect that. So I thought that's a cool thing to do. And yeah, it worked really well, the timing of it, and that's exactly the moment where you played Unison, is when the Jettison mine hatch just traveled to this non-area behind the curtain of like the house, and like the Melanzana's life is just like an infinite grid in the void, and then it creates a portal where it makes him go to like the next level or whatever.
Yeah, there is a lot of references right there at that part of the set. There's like the knock followed by tipper followed by a porter melody. It's like all in that one little section. Yeah, I think stuff came together there nicely.
Yeah, and it was really fun to rebuild the Jettison mine hatch from scratch in Quill, and having to like animate every single component when it just melts apart. And then when we were showing it, the VJ next to me asked me like if I remade the model from scratch, and I said, yeah, I actually searched online and I found a 3D model on Sketchfab that I referenced, and turns out that he was the guy that made the 3D model that I referenced there. So I told him, hey, thank you for that. It was super helpful.
This was Fractaled Visions, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's see. So yeah, there were a lot of people asking for explanations or like providing their own understandings of the story and kind of looking for validation in what the story was. And I don't think we should go too deep into that, just because I think it's important for like the sake of art that like we don't over explain it. But there were, people did reference like Bill's experience with mental health and substance abuse, and finding escape, and then rebirth. And people wanted to kind of like maybe see some of that as that. And I don't think that's an unreasonable view of it. Especially because like, you guys have been working together for so long, and like Funi has, been there from day one, basically, like almost. Would you say that some of this set is like representative of that path through?
I honestly think it can be representative of almost anything you want it to be. And I've kind of always thought this about art, and this is what my Apophenia album was about, is like, I was thinking I kind of want to do a concept album of some sort, but then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, people are just going to imagine whatever they want. Like I can make it about anything, and no matter what I make it about, people are going to derive their own meaning and their own value from it. And so I just called the album Apophenia. I was like, here you go, you figure it out, do whatever you want with it, which is kind of lazy, but also I feel like it's just inevitable to happen regardless. And I feel the same about this set. It's like it could mean one thing to me and a different thing to Funny, a different thing to you, and then everyone in the crowd could have a completely different experience. And you've seen that in the comments that have come out about it, as one person will think it's about like political shit, and then someone else will think it's about like substance abuse, and another person will think it's about, just some random eggplant activity or whatever. And and I think that's kind of the beauty of it, is it's sort of vague enough that anyone who's willing to watch it and absorb themselves in it can kind of derive their own emotional value from it, and hopefully it makes them feel better, or hope helps them like, click some things in their brain to realize something about themselves or about others. Or I think that's kind of the beauty of something like this.
Definitely. Fully agree. I think, it's important to leave that room for interpretation and like self-expression and self-understanding. How did you guys, I'm going kind of back to the process of this whole thing. How did you guys feel during the creation? And I'm going to ask the same question about different stages. Like, how were you feeling, like stress-wise, confidence-wise? Like, what was that
I was
like
feeling
mental
pretty stressed.
process like?
I was pretty stressed, but stress is good. And also being on a timeline, it's really good. It really helps you. Otherwise, you get comfortable. You start like second guessing everything. But when you're like have to deliver, and there's like an insane amount of pressure, because this is not just gonna be like a little thing. Like a lot of people are gonna see it. It's like a very important event. So I did feel a lot of pressure. Luckily, I also feel confident in what I can do with Quill, because I've just been working with it a long time, and I already had some reasonably successful pieces within the VR community. And so I knew that I can play on my strength. So like basically what we were talking earlier, just like instead of focusing on how pretty is this drawn or how many shader can I put into a scene, just making it feel like a story and something that people can just sit and enjoy and try to figure what it's all about. So it was a mix of those two things, just being confident and also being like, holy shit, we are gonna play right before the last ever Tipper show, and we have to be insane. And I just struggle like personally with the animation part, because I'm not an animator. So that was like, I'm just gonna try to create scene where they can work with the least amount of animation possible, and only just save the animation for some really very important moments. And it was just a matter of just try to be smart with the choices and not to just try to overdo it also, and be okay with just move on and go to the next part. But it was also incredibly inspiring just to get music and just bounce back and forth idea. But it was, it came pretty naturally, I would say. Like it didn't feel like anything was forced or we were stuck. Like once we decided when to start with, it just came somehow miraculously.
Yeah, I would say I felt the same way. I think I was a lot more stressed at first. And then once we were like, I don't know, a quarter or a third of the way into the process, I was like, all right, this is kind of flowing now. I was in this workflow of just waking up, coming to the studio every day, working all day, going to bed, coming back to the studio. So I was working like basically every waking minute, but it felt like I was working towards something important and that it wasn't a waste of time. And I felt like I was making at least some progress every day. There was a couple of songs where it would take me like an extra few days to finish than some other ones. But yeah, in general, I would say the second half of it, I was not stressed at all. I really enjoyed the process, actually.
And also, we know each other so well that we barely have to do any feedback on each other. It's just like I know what you like, and you know what I like, and I know what kind of mood and tone you're trying to hit with the music, and vice versa. So it's basically just I made this, I take it, and I give it back, and it's like it's working. Like that's it. Just move on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would say, yeah, it was mostly an enjoyable process, not that stressful. Yeah, I thought the other thing is like as we were doing it, we were kind of able to do the math about like how much time we've spent versus how much time we have. So we had, I think, 3 months, and I was like, okay, we're 20 minutes into the set, and we've spent like 2 weeks. So we're like very much so on pace if we keep this pace up to be done much before the deadline. And so, yeah, that was also that helped a lot with the stress to be like, all right, now we're comfortable, you know, we're not like super stressed on a deadline. We can kind of take our time a bit.
And for the actual performance day and the night before, because I know you guys did a video check late night the night before just to make sure everything was, you know, going properly. What was like the lead in for like the day before the show and the day of the show like mentally?
Yeah, so it was kind of, yeah, that was a little stressful. We had to, so after the first night of the Tipper show, after everyone cleared out of Red Rocks, we had to stay back and do our video check at like 1 a.m. And I mean, the video worked. We weren't allowed to put any sound out of the sound system because Red Rocks has noise limitations, and so we weren't able to like check the sync or anything like that on that day really. But yeah, it was just I was stressed before we had plugged anything in because I was like, fuck, I hope this fiber line works, because if that doesn't work, it's going to be a big problem. But Matthew Knotts, he knows what he's doing, so it worked obviously. And then the next day we had to get there really early. I want to say like 2 p.m. or something like that, which I say that's really early, but there was already like thousands of people waiting at the door at that time. There was like a huge line of people who had been camping there seemingly overnight. So early for me to get to Red Rocks, not early for Tipper fans apparently. And that wasn't so stressful. I mean, they gave us a lot of time to check that day. It was like, I think we had 2 hours or something to check. So yeah, that wasn't too stressful. I honestly don't get that stressed with shows these days. I've played so many of them that the only thing I'm stressing about is like, I hope my computer works, and I hope that like the technology gods, allow us to do the thing today, because you're at the whim of technology at the end of the day with a show like that. Like, the computer has to work. If the computer fails, you're fucked basically. And like, you can have a backup computer, you can have backup lines to send video, you can have all of this kind of shit, but at the end of the day, like, if stuff starts breaking on stage during the show, there's not a lot you can do about it. And trying to fix an issue on the spot like that in front of 10,000 people is extremely stressful. I imagine. I haven't, luckily, never had to do it. But yeah, that's the only kind of stress I get, really, is just, fuck, I hope the computer works. But yeah, how are you feeling about it, Funny?
Yeah, almost the same. It was just a matter of, I hope nothing goes wrong on the technical side. I wasn't stressed as much as I was in disbelief of what was going on, just like being there. And like, as I said, I grew up with Tipper music, just, I still can't believe that it happened and how went it well. But yeah, no, I get stressed if I need to, public speak, or when I need to make sure my taxes are okay. This wasn't stressful per se. It was just like, holy shit. Like, let's hope nothing goes bad in terms of the setup, but let's fucking go.
Yeah, I think the difference is like, when your taxes aren't done, you know that it's a thing that you have to do and that you can do. And it just like sits in the back of your mind. I get the same thing with like going to the post office or something. I'm like, fuck, I really don't want to go to the post office, but I know it's a thing that I have to do, and I know it's a thing that's gonna have to happen at some point, and that kind of shit sort of stresses me out. But when it's a thing that you have no control over, like the computer working or not, it's like, I've done everything in my power to make sure this computer's going to work. There's nothing really to do about it. And so if you stress about that, I mean, it's not helping anything really to do that.
It's just like the anticipation of knowing, because again, you are very much used to playing big crowds and all that. For me, it was like the third time, and it was, again, such a sacred moment for Tipper fans, and for me as a Tipper fan. And just also as a culmination of our collaboration. And it's just like a lot of things playing on like an emotional level. But yeah, it was incredible.
How do you feel now that it's done? Like, now that you've completed it, you've performed it, you've seen some of the feedback.
Excellent.
I'm really glad with the response. Like, people have, I think, given me better response, or given us better response for this set than I think any set I've ever done. And honestly, the most surprising thing to me is just how switched on Tipper fans are. They're like reading into all these tiny details and trying to like make sense out of like every little thing. Like, I didn't think anyone was going to pick the unison melody, honestly, from screening. I was like,
immediately.
Yeah, I was like, this is just a little Easter egg. It's buried in the background. Like, no one's going to know that. It's just going to be a little thing that I put in there as a meme for myself. And yeah, it's like immediately they picked up on it. So that's been really cool to see that people are actually paying attention to that level.
Yeah, having made art for 20 years, like seriously, like you always feel like you put a lot of effort into a thing and then you just put it out there and it's like, sure, whatever, good job. And you get a pat on the back. But this, it just feels like all the effort and all the time that we put into this really was really felt and appreciated. And you couldn't ask for anything better as a person that make a thing for other people to see. Just having so many people watch it and in unison, it was just incredible. And yeah, I think about it and I'm like, damn, we did that. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. A lot of people want to know about putting the high res version out. We can confirm that we will. We haven't decided on the timeline yet. It'll be soonish.
We want to put it out. Obviously, we put so much work into it that we want people to be able to like it. We made it for people to watch. We obviously want people to watch it, but I'm just not sure the best way to do it. Like I'm still waiting for a recording of the set. So once we get that, we can take a look at it and see if it's good and see if it like does justice to the set and if it's like high quality enough and whatnot. But we also just have the video and the audio directly, so we could also just release that, and then it would literally just be a video on YouTube. You wouldn't see any stage or any crowd noise or anything. It would literally just be the rawest version of the set. And so that could be a way to do it as well. I'm just not sure what the best way is. Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
There's a lot of questions about some like the collab that you have with Tipper, if there's more collabs with Tipper, when those might come out. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Tell us, Bill. When is it coming out?
I have no idea. That's really up to Tipper. But the last track I played in the set was the Tipper collab. I felt like what better way to ease into a Tipper set than playing a Tipper collab at the end.
Well, if you have one, if not everyone has one.
That's true. Yeah, so that one, I don't know. I mean, it's finished. It's been finished for years, but it's really not up to me when it comes out. It's up to Tipper, and he has his own way that he likes to release music, and so yeah, that's that. But I went into that collab knowing that, he like at the start of the process was like, you have to be okay with this potentially never coming out. And I was like, yeah, I don't give a shit. Let's just make something. I don't really care. And so, I mean, I'm not stressing about it coming out or not. I know fans probably are, but if we release the set though, I mean, then you'll have it. Yeah. Cause it's the last track in the set. So, yeah.
And, jumping off of that one, how has Tipper influenced you in what you're doing, both of you? And what does he mean to you as an artist?
I think Tipper is like it's hard to explain. I mean, basically, he's just always done the exact thing he wants to do, and he's always put in like tons of effort and, obviously works a shitload, and it's just cool to see that pay off. Like a lot of the time you see the thing that pays off for people is more like the marketing and the branding and having a good, team behind them, being repped by like really cloudy agents and big management companies and all this kind of stuff. And it's just cool to see someone who doesn't really have that much branding or marketing or anything like that, and who just puts all their effort into the music and then see it pay off at such a large scale. It's just rare, I feel like, to see that happen, because it makes me feel like, okay, if I just work really hard and get really good at music, that I can also turn that into like a solid career. Whereas more my mindset over the last few years has been like, no, I kind of have to make dubstep so I can go and open for Ganja and then, play to their fan base and have, solid marketing and all this kind of shit, which, I mean, I don't hate. Like, I like making dubstep too. It's not like it's a chore for me. I love it. But to be able to see someone doing the literally exact thing that they want to do at all times and have it pay off at that level is just huge. And it gives me like a little bit of hope, I guess, to think that that's possible, to see that that is actually possible. And so I would say that's kind of like the biggest feeling I get around Tipper as an artist in terms of what it means to me, I guess. But also like his music, like on an emotional level, just hits hard as well. Like I love his music. I've always loved his music, and I feel like he's just kept improving and getting better over the years. Whereas a lot of artists you see, they used to be cool like me, and then they start making dubstep and they go downhill. So yeah, that's the other thing. He's just got a lot of artistic integrity, and it's good. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, I don't know what to add, honestly. Like, I love Tipper. I grew up with his music. I discovered it when I was in, I don't know, high school. I had a friend that was like my music guru that gave me all this mind-bending music in a very non-suspecting time. And I think in one summer, I discovered, Aphex Twin, Boards of Canada, Tipper, Wisp, Venetian snares, all like crazy forward-thinking electronic music that laid foundation for the incredible amount of amazing electronic music that there is around today. And yeah, I've been following him since forever. Like Minimal Thoughts of Reason is one of my favorite track ever, and he played it, and that's for like 20 years ago. Surrounded, Broken Soul Jamboree. Dude, it's like, it's impossible to put into words. I know it's weird because you do, like, I feel like I like so many different musicians on such a deep level that it's just like, it feels like it's not that like meaningful because, I love so much of music, but Tipper is like, holy shit, like he's been there since forever. And I grew up, like, his music was always there, and it would always been such an incredible complexity of like crazy sound, things you'd never heard before. First 5.1 surround album ever. Also just like the chasing of the new technology and how to take advantage of that. I feel like I love that as well, because I'm trying to do the same with VR in a similar, like, just embracing new technology without being scared of it, and just take advantage of all the technical things that you can do with it. And yeah, I don't know. And then I got a brief chance to meet him, and he knew that I was with Bill, and I was just like, holy shit, amazing.
Awesome.
I hope he keeps releasing music.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So we kind of covered a lot of the stuff about the set and the performance and you guys' history. I think the best direction here is what's next. What are we looking at? A lot of people are asking about, like, are you going to continue putting music and visuals out like this? I know you've got a couple shows coming up in October in St. Petersburg, Florida, Madison, Wisconsin, and you are also playing at Wobbleween, where this set probably would not be the right vibe. Do you want to talk a little bit about the short-term future and then the longer-term future?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to just make shows like this constantly and like have that be the thing that I do. But the amount of work to make a show like that is just insane. It's so much work, and I just don't see it being a sustainable thing to do, to just make shows like that constantly. At least for now, yeah. I mean, like, maybe if at some point I'm able to sell out massive venues like Red Rocks or something, then yeah, sure, like it's possible to put together special shows like that for those occasions. But yeah, what people have to understand is to make a show like that is months of work. And so, like, if you're doing a show every month or 2 shows a month or something like that, like, it's just not possible to make a show like that for all of them. Even though I would really like to build another show like that at some point, for sure. So that's the first thing. Yeah, the other thing is the upcoming shows. I'm trying to sort of refactor the set that we played at Tipper into an album. So that's kind of my focus right now. So the shows that are coming up are basically going to be the heavy set that I've been doing lately, which is, yeah, most, like, ganja collabs, that kind of stuff. It's going to be dubstep for sure, which is unfortunate because I would like to have the time before those sets to make like a more heady type of thing. But yeah, unfortunately, I just don't have the time right now to do that before those shows. So I think leading into next year, I'm going to try to make a bunch more heady up-tempo stuff so that I can kind of have two different types of heavy sets, one more dubsteppy and one more heady. And then depending on which type of event I'm playing, I can sort of pick between, different kinds of sets. So that's kind of my goals for the short-term future. Long-term future, I mean, who fucking knows? It's impossible to say what's going to happen. I mean, like I said, it could turn out that all of a sudden I'm selling like Red Rocks out or something, and then the long-term future shit is going to be completely different to if I'm selling out, the Black Box or something where there's not quite as much money to play with and develop these crazy big shows. So yeah, that's basically where I'm at with that.
Awesome. All right, so we've got a couple random questions. Can you elaborate on the rumor that Dave is going to take up woodworking in his retirement?
Yeah, I know he's into woodworking, and I know he's into like visual art and like pottery and all sorts of stuff like that.
Pottery?
He's just a super
awesome.
Creative dude. He's into all sorts of like just weird shit, and it's not really weird, but yeah, he's just into all sorts of like creative shit. He's kind of definitely an artist at his core for sure. And so yeah, I mean, he's probably going to do some of that. I don't know what else he's going to do. I'm not Dave.
I also want to do woodworking, but you need a place to do that, and I don't have a place.
Yeah, and you need some of the tools you need are pretty expensive too. Like you probably need a lathe, and lathes are fucking probably like 10 grand or something.
Woodworking, it's huge here. It's like the coolest trend. Yeah.
So
we have like fairs and these artists that have been doing it for generations. It's like a very strong tradition, and it is cool. I also I follow like woodworkers that do like modern things that are mind-blowingly cool, like 3D characters and stuff like that. I would love to try it because it's not different than sculpting in VR with quill. You're just doing the same, but on wood.
Little more muscle involved.
The idea is the same. Obviously, the technique
fingers.
is a lot different, and it would be very hard. But I would love to try and learn it. Maybe Tipper will make tutorials one day.
Maybe he's going to start doing woodworking tutorials.
That'd be cool. If it does the equivalent on wood of what it does with music, that'd be pretty cool.
Sick. Somebody wanted to know if you're still doing sourdough.
I haven't made sourdough in ages, but I recently got a housemate, and so I feel like it's kind of worth doing it because it's not really worth making sourdough for yourself. Like you make a loaf, you eat like a few slices, and then the rest of it kind of goes stale real quick. It goes stale in like a day because there's just not as much preservatives or no preservatives really in it. And so it's not really worth just making it for myself. But yeah, now that I have a housemate, I've started to get back into it. I haven't made any loaves yet, but I got a starter going. So, yep.
Nice.
Cool. Awesome. I think we've pretty much covered anything or everything, all the questions that people have asked. There were a few about, performing this set in something like a movie theater, IMAX. I know, like, us three have talked about that, and how that.
I mean, it would be cool.
Might look.
It would be cool to distribute it, but it's not. It's never gonna be the same because it was only that special because it was the last gig from Tipper at Red Rocks. If we do it some place else, the Jettison Mind Hatch will not feel as meaningful, as impactful because it's in a different context. It will not work. This was just done for that, and obviously, we're gonna distribute it because we want people to see it, but it's not gonna be. I don't think we're gonna tour it because it wouldn't make sense to tour this.
Right.
But I've been super down to do something else for an IMAX. Like, why not merge more the two different, what's the word, like film and music, instead of just following the format? why don't we just crossbreed and do weird shit? Like I saw this amazing dome experience last year in South by Southwest, which was a music album where you just were like laying on long chair and watching 1 hour of animation in a dome, and that was great. And there's so many cool things that can be done with just this this mix of technology that I'd be definitely interested to experiment.
I thought it was really interesting, like watching the performance myself. So generally when I see people sit down at shows, it's not always a positive thing, but in this case, I saw a lot of people sitting and like really, like they weren't on their phones. They weren't, having conversations. They were like locked in watching this as if it was a movie, which I thought was really interesting from my own perspective.
Yeah, like we said before, that's like the peak experience for an artist, right? Is making something and having people absorb themselves in it and actually pay attention to all the little detail and work that you put into it. And so, I mean, I couldn't be happier with the fact that people are doing that regardless of whether they're sitting or standing.
Yeah,
definitely.
I had direct view of this guy that did not sit, and it's just dance the entire set from the first dun, 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 until the last note. It was just wild. And it was funny because everyone around him was sitting and they were just watching, but he was just like going off, and it was pretty fun. So shout out to that dude.
Nice.
Awesome.
Sick. Well, all right. I'm glad we did this podcast. And thanks to everyone for the questions. And we'll try and put the set out as soon as we can, as soon as we figure out the best way to do it. And anything else from you guys?
Follow Funi on Instagram at Funilab, and join the Bill Eagle community.
Sick. All right. Thanks.